Hello, everyone, and welcome to our lecture on the social life of insects. Today, we are going to explore one of the most fascinating phenomena in the entire animal kingdom, eusociality. We will discover how tiny creatures like bees and termites build complex societies that rival human cities. And we will uncover the hidden mathematical logic that drives their incredible teamwork. Let us dive in.
Now that we know what our topic is, let us understand why insect societies are so special. Imagine a bustling human city where every single person has a highly specific job and no one acts selfishly. In the insect world, this is a reality. We call these colonies superorganisms because the entire group functions like a single living body. Individual insects completely give up their independence, and sometimes even their lives, to ensure the colony survives. This level of extreme teamwork allows them to build massive structures and gather resources on a scale that a single bug could never achieve alone. Building on the idea of a superorganism, biologists have a strict formal name for this: eusociality, which means true sociality. But not every group of bugs is eusocial. To earn this title, a species must meet 3 strict rules. First, there must be a reproductive division of labor. This means only a select few, like a queen, get to reproduce, while the rest are sterile workers. Second, the colony must practice cooperative brood care, working together to feed the young. Third, multiple generations must live together under one roof. Honeybees and termites are the ultimate champions of these 3 rules. To truly visualize this division of labor we just discussed, let us look at the honeybee caste system. On your screen, you can see 3 distinct types of bees found in a single hive. On the far left is the queen. Notice her elongated abdomen. She is the sole reproductive female, a diploid organism whose only job is to lay eggs. In the middle is the worker. She is also female and diploid, but much smaller and completely sterile, built for foraging and nursing. On the right is the drone, the reproductive male, who is uniquely haploid. This physical specialization is what makes the eusocial colony function so perfectly. Now that we have seen how these colonies are structured, we must ask, why do they matter to us? The truth is, these tiny societies are the invisible engines keeping our planet alive. Because of their incredible organization, eusocial insects dominate the environment. Honeybees alone are responsible for pollinating about 1/3 of all the food you and I eat, from apples to oranges. Meanwhile, termites, which we often dismiss as house pests, are actually nature's ultimate recyclers. They break down dead wood and return vital nutrients to the soil. Without these social insects, our entire global food web would simply collapse. Understanding their ecological importance brings us to a massive biological puzzle. Why would a worker bee completely give up her own chance to have babies just to help her mother raise more sisters? At first glance, this totally breaks the rules of evolution, which usually demands that individuals fight to pass on their own genes. However, evolutionary biology solves this mystery with a brilliant concept called kin selection. It turns out that because these insects share so much DNA with their siblings, helping their family is actually a mathematically genius way to pass on their own genes. Let us look at the math behind this. This brings us to the famous equation that explains self-sacrifice, known as Hamilton's rule. Conceptually, this formula proves that altruism evolves when the genetic payoff outweighs the personal loss. Let us break down the symbols. The letter R stands for genetic relatedness, which is how much DNA the helper and the receiver share. The letter B is the benefit, meaning the number of extra babies the receiver can have because of the help. Finally, C is the cost, which is the number of babies the helper gives up. If the relatedness R increases, or the benefit B increases, the left side grows. When the left side is strictly greater than the cost C, the animal will choose to sacrifice itself. Before we apply Hamilton's rule to a real example, we need to understand a genetic quirk in honeybees called haplodiploidy. In bees, females have 2 sets of chromosomes, making them diploid, while males only have 1 set, making them haploid. Because of this strange setup, a worker bee shares 75% of her genes with her sisters. But if she were to have her own daughters, she would only share the standard 50% of her genes with them. This means a worker bee is actually more closely related to her sisters than she would be to her own children. Keep this in mind as we look at our first calculation. Now that we know the genetics, let us see Hamilton's rule in action. We are given a scenario where a worker bee must choose: leave to have 2 daughters, or stay and help the queen raise 4 extra sisters. First, we calculate the genetic cost. She shares 50% of her genes with a daughter, so 0.5 times 2 daughters equals a genetic cost of 1.0. Next, we calculate the benefit. She shares 75% of her genes with a sister, so 0.75 times 4 sisters equals a genetic benefit of 3.0. Finally, we compare them. Since 3 is greater than 1, the math dictates she should stay and help. Physically, this means her genes spread much faster through teamwork. So we have successfully used the formula, but let us dig deeper into why this proves the evolution of eusociality. What this first chunk of our proof is establishing is the baseline cost of altruism. If the bee acted like a normal, solitary insect, she would pass on exactly 1 unit of her genetic code to the next generation. By becoming a sterile worker, she completely loses that 1 unit. The mathematical reasoning here is simple but brutal. Self-sacrifice means a total loss of direct reproduction. This brings us to the next step, where we must find out how she recovers this massive genetic loss. Continuing our derivation, we now look at the hidden genetic return. Because of the high relatedness to her sisters, her sacrifice pumps 3 full units of her DNA into the next generation. Subtracting the 1 unit lost from the 3 units gained, we see a net evolutionary gain of 2 full units. The math proves that she gets a massive return on her investment. The intuition here is beautiful. She is not throwing her life away. She is using her mother to clone her own genes. This final result perfectly explains why sterile worker casts are mathematically stable. Before we move on, let us see this with another concrete example, this time with termites. Unlike bees, termites are strictly diploid, meaning siblings share the standard 50% of their genes. Imagine a sterile termite soldier defending the mound from a predator. The given cost is its own life, representing 1 lost future offspring. The given benefit is that it saves 5 siblings. We multiply the relatedness, 0.5, by the 5 siblings saved, giving us a total genetic benefit of 2.5. We compare this to the ultimate cost of 1. Since 2.5 is strictly greater than 1, Hamilton's rule is satisfied. Physically, this means dying to save 5 siblings is a genetic victory. Now that we have calculated the termite's choice, let us understand the reasoning behind this diploid altruism. This chunk of our proof establishes the danger of low relatedness. Because termites only share 50% of their genes, saving just one sibling is mathematically insufficient. If a soldier dies for one sibling, it loses one full unit of its own potential, but only saves half a unit of shared genes. This results in a net evolutionary failure. The intuition here is that a one-to-one trade is a bad deal in a diploid system. Let us see how the termite overcomes this in the final step.
Concluding our derivation, we see how the termite soldier turns a genetic loss into a victory. The mathematical reasoning here relies on volume. By saving 5 siblings instead of just 1, the soldier ensures 2.5 units of its DNA survive. Subtracting the 1 unit lost, the soldier achieves a net evolutionary gain of 1.5 units. The sheer number of siblings saved completely makes up for the lower relatedness. This final result perfectly explains why termite soldiers are so fiercely protective of their massive dirt mounds, proving that suicidal defense is an evolutionarily stable strategy. We have covered a lot of ground today, so let us summarize the most important ideas. First, remember that true eusociality is defined by strict rules: reproductive division of labor, cooperative brood care, and overlapping generations. Second, never forget the ecological impact of these creatures. They are the pollinators and decomposers that hold our world together. Finally, we learned that the seemingly selfless behavior of worker bees and termite soldiers is actually driven by the mathematical logic of Hamilton's rule. By helping their relatives, they are ensuring the survival of their own shared genes. You now understand the incredible biological and mathematical machinery behind the social life of insects. Great job today!